Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well this cold November morning, and welcome to our webinar today. This session is primarily aimed at approved housing bodies and associations, where we'll be discussing the best approaches to streamlining building information, particularly in the current market, where there is increasing pressure to deliver more housing in Ireland, which consequently has knock-on effects on data, meaning more complex data, growing data across residential buildings, where safety is the biggest priority. My name is Maria Hudson. I'm CMO at DFM Systems, and I will be your moderator for today. I am pleased to be joined by Cameron Jacobson, who is our Head of Business Development at DFM Systems, who will be taking us through some of the data challenges and how to take control of your data in today's data-heavy and digital world. I'm also delighted to be joined by Mark McCormack, who is our Head of Operations and Delivery Expert, onto the session, who will share more about best practice approaches, the DFM solution, but also taking ownership of building information and how DFM do the legwork so you don't have to. We will be taking questions throughout the session. We want to keep this session as interactive as possible. So please do ask on the chat bot, or the chat section or Q&A section at the bottom of the right hand of the screen, and we can take these throughout the session. And if you want, we will be wrapping up with questions at the end as well. We will also be running polls throughout the session, so please share your insights so we can understand a bit more about you and how we can support you better. So, a bit more about DFM Systems. So for those of you that don't know DFM Systems, the company's been operating for about 20 years and is part of the Build Data Group, a combination of complementary companies that also includes sister company Zootech. Specializing in building information, DFM Systems has been delivering digital building manuals and safety files to some of the leading contractors, developers, home builders, asset owners, and approved housing bodies in the region for over 20 years. Focused on ensuring building owners receive all the data is required for operating and maintaining a building or facility once construction is complete, and that building is handed over effectively. Our team comprises of architects, engineers, software developers, dedicated creating innovative solutions to help you manage building information across the life cycle and make sure you have the building information that you require for a building and as an occupier. So to kick off the session, I will be talking a little bit more about the Irish handover market as well. So, and a bit about the regulatory landscape. So under the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Construction Regulation 2013, preparing and handing over a safety file isn't optional, it's a legal requirement for projects that meet certain thresholds. That responsibility falls on the contractor, who must provide a complete safety file to the client at project completion. Now, this sounds straightforward on paper, but as many of you probably are aware, the reality of getting complete, accurate and usable safety files from contractors can be quite a different story. In our experience, a number of the contractors believe that the information they have generated and deliver as part of BCAR, that's the Building Control Amendment Regulation in Ireland, which was introduced in 2014, is actually suffice. But that's not actually the case and doesn't have the right information required as part of that safety file. That sometimes means that critical information that is required to operate a building isn't available at the time of handover and has to be backfilled at a later date, and sometimes means that building is complete and operating without all the right information supplies. Cam will talk a little bit more about that in detail, and also about the delivery of that information that can be also quite questionable when it comes from the contractor. So this brings me really to the real challenge. So to warm you up, actually, I wanted to make sure that you're all on the call. There is a react button at the bottom of the screen. And for those of you that are managing more buildings today than you were 3 years ago, just put a thumbs up so that we can see that. Okay, so some of you. So with the Irish setting a target of 300,000 homes to be delivered by 2030, and more funding and requirements expected under the Delivering Homes Building Communities Action Plan, which was actually announced last week, this puts increasing pressure on the housing industry and particularly approved housing bodies to deliver more faster. Already approved housing bodies are forecasting the delivery of about 26,000 dwellings over the next 3 years. That's a significant contribution to the government's overall target and fantastic news for addressing Ireland's housing crisis. However, here was what it means from a building information perspective. Growing portfolios mean more information and data, especially when every single new building comes with its own set of documentation. More data means more complexity, especially when safety files, O&M manuals, as-built drawings, warranties, certificates, asset registers, and more are adding thousands of documents per building to an organisation, which can be spread across different formats, systems, and locations. And here's where it gets more complicated. That information doesn't necessarily arrive in a neat, organised package. It comes spread across different formats, PDFs, CAD files, spreadsheets, even paper-based documents, and that's still today in the digital world. It's stored in different systems, contractor CDEs, email inboxes, Dropboxes, folders, and it sits across different locations with contractors, consultants, and your own teams. So while your portfolio is growing, which is the core mission, your building information is growing even faster, and it's becoming increasingly fragmented. The question then becomes, how do you manage that exponential growth in a data while maintaining control, ensuring compliance, and supporting your facilities management teams who need to actually use this information day to day? And that's exactly what we're going to address today with Mark and Cam. So with this in mind, I'd like to hand over to Cam and then Mark to explain a bit more about the data house and getting that in order. Thanks, Cam.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. So I guess that to get us started, as we're all aware, information can be just scattered across multiple systems, typically just leading to the dreaded task of an asset manager to sieve through multiple different systems to find basic information, such as the maintenance for the heat pumps. If we start adding more information to this process, which is currently not fit for purpose, we're just adding to the problem. Throughout our conversations with housing associations, we're seeing unstructured processes across teams leading to late deliveries of safety files, fragmented information due to unclear responsibilities set out with the contractors during the project. Housing association teams are dealing with inconsistent information across buildings, making audits and updates to building information difficult, quite often leading to compliance gaps further down the line. Missing and inaccurate information is increasing the operational risk of compliance across portfolios, which is creating a lack of transparency for teams to identify issues early in the process before it's too late. What we're also seeing working with contractors across projects on multiple systems is that multiple systems are essentially being used, such as Procore and typically 4 other different systems during the construction phase of a project. It's easy for a contractor to essentially capture this data in multiple different sources, but all far too often this leads to key information missing at project completion. Key building information can be left sat on multiple different systems, which causes access issues for the clients, and typically this will just lead to aftercare calls with the client reaching out to the contractor to find missing information. It's critical for digital safety file information to be provided in a single source of truth at PC to ensure that asset teams have the full documentation of the building and avoid scrambling around trying to find information which might just not exist. And I think we're moving on to a poll here.
That's right. Thanks, Cam. Sorry. Yes, we do have a poll. So we'll have our first live poll going live now. You should be able to see it coming up in your poll button on the bottom right hand of the screen. And that poll is, what are your greatest building information challenges? Tick all that apply, or if all of the above apply, please tick them. It's good to kind of understand a bit more about your challenges and how you're experiencing kind of that data crossover from your suppliers over to yourselves as asset owners. So I can see actually quite a few of you voting now, so thank you. Unstructured data and multiple storage platforms is coming up as one of the biggest areas or challenges. Also difficulty locating information. And all of the above, actually. So a lot of you are experiencing these issues, which is, you know, what we're hearing kind of daily from our conversations with asset owners. So this kind of aligns with what we're seeing and hearing. So that's not necessarily good to see, but it's good to know that you're not the only ones out there having the same challenges. So thank you to everyone that's added to the poll. Thank you. I'll hand back to you then, Cam.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, it's interesting to hear. I mean, there's multiple different ways that we're currently working with housing associations, depending on their current situations. So for new developments, we're being specified in the employee requirements for the contractor to use DFM Systems for their delivery of the digital safety file. One of the main reasons why this is done by the client is so they can set a clear standard of expectations with the contractor in terms of what the actual format and structure is in terms of the information they receive, to avoid any gaps in information and just ensuring consistent, accurate information from the trades during the life cycle of the build. It allows us to enforce requirements throughout the project and reduce the risk of any non-compliant information, having DFM's technical team reviewing the information prior to handover. Trades and housing associations gain visibility and transparency through real-time tracking of the safety file process, along with the visibility of missing information prior to PC to ensure we've just got visibility on any gaps, which can be chased out with the trades prior to PC. The key is to ensure you've got accurate information at PC through being proactive in the collation of trade information, which is often one of the toughest parts, right? To make sure that we've got this information complete at PC. DFM's process, we chase in line with the project program. So we're making sure we're engaging at the right time while the trades are on site, engaged, so that the client's going to receive all the information that's required at PC. The final output of this should be to ensure that the client has a single source of truth for all their projects, removing the burden of struggling to find key information post and pre-completion. For existing buildings, we're able to help take ownership of the digital safety file process across your portfolios by fixing historic informational gaps and rebuilding essentially a reliable data set. We standardize the way information is structured across buildings using our naming convention and metadata to help asset management teams find key information and also fill in any missing gaps, which can lead to hours of headaches. DFM helps improve the access for facility management teams, having all this information in one place, cutting search time down for documentation. Often clients have issues connecting this data as well to their CAFAM systems, which can lead to silos of information cross-functionally. We're able to essentially reduce the amount of silos with connecting the data to CAFAM, BMS systems, helping improve coordination across the maintenance, safety, and operational teams. We know from previous experience that older buildings are typically at higher risk of having information missing in terms of their digital safety files. We're able to help improve compliance, not just on new, but also existing buildings. And then finally, creating a long-term strategy for project information is essentially vital for all housing associations to ensure that there is a live, accurate, updatable building record for facilities management teams to use. Tools such as SharePoint, G Drive aren't enough moving forwards to ensure that we've got a single source of information. In fact, Google, one of our clients, has moved all of their building information across from their own internal G Drive to DFM Systems to ensure that they have a single source of information for their building operating team. This has removed the issue of poor information just scattered across different systems in different files and folders with no structured naming convention. And that's helped reduce the amount of reworked, missed maintenance, and allowing for refurbishment, maintenance, and inspections to take place on one single platform for Google.
Thank you, Cam. So we're now on to poll 2. I'm going to put that live, and you should be able to see that in the poll tab again. So poll 2 is, what systems and processes do you have in place today? Fragmented processes and systems across every building, disorganized data, especially if you're downloading from a contractor's CDE. Are you specifying digital safety file today? One platform for all building information. Do you use a document management system or CDE? Are you still using paper-based processes, or do you simply not know? So if you could leave your votes, and then again we can see what's really probably the process which is in place, and actually looking at the results that are coming in, actually fragmented processes and systems across every building is the top at 44%. And just behind that is disorganized data downloading from contractor CDEs. Some of you do specify today, and some of you do have one platform, but I think everybody is managing their data differently. These there is very much a situation where we're hearing that our customers do have fragmented processes, and this is what we are trying to come across today, is with some best practice approaches for overcoming that. So at this point, and probably the best person to speak about it, and I know Mark, you were just joining when I did introductions, so welcome.
Thanks, Maria.
I will now hand over to Mark, our operations expert, to talk a bit more in detail about this. Thank you, Mark.
That's great. Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Cam. Yeah, and I'd put down some notes from the polls that you had put in, and the unstructured data, incomplete data, fragmented processes, I think falls right in line with what I'm going to go through now, with specifying us from the beginning, or where we can do a gap analysis on existing projects. I suppose the key in all of this is that it's not just an approved housing body issue. This is just construction, one of the least digitized industries in the world. Everyone faces the same issues. Cam was mentioning Google, whether it's Google, whether it's the LDA, whether it's any of the REITs, unstructured data and standardization is something that everyone struggles with. So that's our goal for the last 20 years, has been trying to digitize and standardize the way information is handed across for construction projects. So we have a standard approach, a standard folder layout that we adopt, but with each individual client, we tweak that for specific needs. So you have the information where you want, and what systems you want, what information you want, and it's the same for every building. So when you go into building A, building B, C, D, the information is in the exact same location. Also, by working with the trade, we're bringing them on the journey as well. So we actively will do meetings with all the trade, get them to upload, get them to give the information, and get them to raise their standards of handover documentation, because it will just it improves it for everyone. It improves it for us to be able to get the information in, but also the end users. Reviewing that documentation as it comes in, we have a set templates of required documents for each of the systems that would be in a building, and we work off that. So as the information comes in, it's not just files uploaded and processed. We'll review, we'll say what's missing, we'll send that information back to the trade on ongoing correspondence between ourselves and the trades happens throughout the project. Also with the support and training, we have dedicated support team here that, whether you're the trade management or whether you're the end user, there's always someone here to be able to support and train you through the system. Also with data migration, I think Cam had picked up on it. So whether it's the building is 2 years old, 50 years old, if there's some documentation there, we can digitize it and we can review through it and we can start doing a gap analysis on it. In instances, we can also go out and try and fill those gaps where we can. With information, we have a vast database of all the subcontractors, developers, designers, and we have contacts throughout those. So we're able to, in instance, be able to get that information that is missing. And I suppose the client or the compliance readiness and the single source of truth, I think is probably going to be best to be able to show now in a second now when we go into the live demo, and I'll be able to show that now once we go on to the next slide. So this is our standard process, our steps. So whether we're doing a live project for the very beginning or whether we're doing a digitization, it's a subset of these steps that we will use. So we will start off a kick-off project setup meeting with the developer, with the contractors. We will work with them throughout the construction project. We will then set timeframes and data drops of when files need to be reviewed. We will do that. We will then, all the way up to PC and closeout, have a full dashboard, which again I'll show you shortly, so you know that your information is ready for that PC. And then client handover and hosting, then going forward, we then use it as a nearly like a building logbook to keep that building up to date with all the most up-to-date maintenance records. So you have it all in one place. Sorry. So I think now I'm just going to share my screen and go into the demo. So can you see my screen on that? Sorry.
No worries, Mark. At least it proves that it's a live demo.
It is, yeah. So hopefully now you should see my screen.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark.
See my screen? Yeah, okay. Thanks. Okay, so when you log into a project within DFM, this is the interface that you're set with. So I'm going to go through this. We've got different modules down the left-hand side, and then we have a win or a folder structure here. This is the standard DFM folder structure, which then we can modify to suit clients' requirements. So within the design section, we would have a lot of the design information from architects, PSDP, M&E consultants, all the way down to consents and certification. So this folder here, we kind of group in documentation that would need for compliance. So within here, disable access cert, your planning permission, your ancillary certs, your BER certs. And again, all of these, you'll see there's an interface in the front that gives you details. And on the documents tab, then you have the documents associated with that. So with any of these, if I click, it brings in the document from the side. You can then either view it in full screen, you can download it, or if you need a document, you can scan it on a QR code and open on your device. Also, as well, with permissions, you can create a QR code and send that link to someone to download the document. As you want to go down through the documents, that view will remain open, so you can quickly navigate through and you don't have multiple tabs open above to see that information. So as we go from folder to folder, you'll see that the information changes. So within this kind of design and compliance area, we would have a lot of the information that would be with your building control, BCAR handover, and documentation that's important, I suppose, legally, for it to be able to have people either move into the units or be able to move into the units or if you need to do an audit on that, the information is there. So this folder here is lots of times customized by the end users. As you go out of folder 1 into the rest of the folders, this is really where you've got your construction and as-built documentation. So as you go down through here, we try and break it out in a logical order, so it's quick and easy to find information. So we break it down through your site and external information, your building envelope, your facades, through your internals. So we go all the way down to information on the likes of carpet, flooring. So for example, on this one here, we'll have the name of the company, the details of the company. We'll have the overview with the information that you can easily see what the product is, the description, and who the supplier. With that, then we have our documentation on the carpet. So as you can see, every document is put in with a plain English title. So you know what that document is before you even need to open it. Every document is tagged with a type. So if you quickly just want to see anything to do with operating and maintenance, you can click and then it opens the document there. Some of the bigger systems, like the mechanical, electrical, will have detailed system descriptions saying how the overview, how the system operates, and details on the front page. And then again with the documents, once you go into here, you'll have all your documents by type. So again, by clicking on it, you have your warranty, your technical data, your product information. So this tree here, this is what we work with the trade team throughout the construction project. Now that information, this is how we gather that information. So the final view that I've just shown is I suppose the final version. This is a work in progress area where files get accepted, rejected, comments come back and forth, and we track where we are on the project. So as you can see, the structured tree down the left-hand side here is the exact same as we had a minute ago. But now we have a matrix report where we go down through and track that information. So this dashboard is the dashboard that we use when we're working with the main contractor and trades to review progress. So those meetings generally would happen bi-weekly, monthly, depending how far from PC the project actually is. So as we're going down through that, this is live. We update it weekly with the latest submission, depending on when the data drops are happening. This progress report isn't modified by the contractor. Any of the information in here is confirmed by ourselves. So if I look down through some of this, say I click on domestic water services, you can see here that there's documentation uploaded within here, and also on the required items list, you can see that this is the information we've requested for that particular system. Now again, depending on client requirements, we can change, update, or put information in for you on that and track that information. So as the contractor uploads, they put their progress in, we review it, and then make sure that is correct. Only the DFM progress shows on the front page on the matrix. So this is really the key part to the platform during the construction phase, because this is where it indicates where all the information stay as is. So only the information that's accepted and approved comes into the final version here. So on projects, we may have 2,000 files uploaded, 300 or 400 may be rejected because of, for instance, a lot of times is drawings uploaded that aren't as built will be rejected. That information never comes into this area. This area only gets the information that's been accepted into the system. So that's your home page. Now on this modules on the left-hand side, we have our All Documents tab. So on the All Documents tab, what that does, it loads every document from every subfolder. So to give you one long list, so within here, there's 917 files. So what that does, rather than having to go folder by folder, you can then come into one area and say, right, I would like to see all the warranties. Now it lists all the warranties in one view. You can also still see what system they belong to, and you can either bulk download or view, or if you wanted your O&M manuals, there's all your O&M manuals across all systems. If I go to all types again, and if you use the keyword, you want something like pump in, so everything with pump in the title then comes into one view. So that filter is a very quick way of finding information rather than having to go folder by folder. Similarly on drawings, we have all the drawings listed in one folder, again, just for ease of being able to view them all in one view, or just bring out, say, first floor, or I think this one we call them levels. So again, by putting in level 1, again, we will just get all the ones for level 1. We have our item register, which is an asset register, so we list all the main components, and this can be exported into CSV or Excel then to go into your CAFM system, which Cam touched on earlier, which we can also link URLs out to the documentation as well. CRM of everyone on that project and what they've done. Simple click on them and you scan the QR code and it will put the number in your phone. A list of the warranties and the duration and the start date. Extracted out a maintenance PPM based on the project. So this is what we ask the contractor and subcontractors to provide on the systems they've installed. What are the maintenance recommendations? And that will allow then for a PPM plan to be put in place for the project. Then on our work orders tab here, what we do then is once the PPM plan for the project has been completed within your CAFM system, we mirror and map it here. So what we do is we set up the requirements across all the months for the year. And what this is to do is to keep I suppose, a check or an area where all that certification for the building can be kept. Similar to having a car and getting it serviced at an approved dealer, they'll stamp the logbook. So you coming down the line when you sell the car, people has a full record. Similar here, that at any stage over the years, you can go back through the years, see what maintenance was completed, check the reports, and you've got full detail within one area, which really helps then on when you're auditing, or even just to go back to make sure that maintenance has been completed. So that is I suppose, a whistle-stop tour of the system. So I'll come back over to you, Maria.
Thanks, Mark. I think I'll just pull the slide up. So I guess from seeing what Mark's presented today, you know, the overview really is that we do the legwork for you. We step in, we control the process, we manage the process, and you have a platform that houses all your data. You know, all project closeout documentation is clearly defined with you. We have progress reports are provided throughout the process, and your delivered digital safety file or building manual is delivered at completion, and you can do this across all your housing. And as we say, with the data migration process, we can also upload your existing buildings. Documents are added once, but can be cross-linked throughout the system. So there is, you know, access to documents, and they can be used multiple times. There's a thorough review process that Mark talked about, so it's always accurate and complete. We can manage multiple buildings from one platform. It's a web-based interface, which means that you can access it from anywhere, anytime, with unlimited users. And all your documents and the platform itself meets international standards and compliance. And really, you know, to wrap that piece up, you know, the asset register and is cloud hosted. So that means it's secure, as I said, anytime access, and supports kind of your maintenance and management delivery within DFM Live. So thank you, Mark, for talking through that. I think that was really invaluable in terms of seeing it in action. I'll hand back to you, I think, Mark, to talk a little bit more about some of the projects that we have that we've worked with.
Yeah, sure. So similar to, I suppose, if we take, I suppose 5-6 years ago, the commercial side was an area where we were very much focused. But as I suppose the clients we were working with changed, their focus into residential. So the projects we have. So the majority of our projects now are on residential. So on some of the projects we have here, we have worked, and I'm just looking through them. We have worked directly with contractors on some of them. We've worked directly with DLDA on Dunor. We started with the contractor, and then we worked with DLDA, and I think there was a handover to Tua on that as well. And the captain's place was the same. The benefit, I suppose, the drawback of some of those projects was they were I suppose they were our clients, so we were giving them what they wanted. It wasn't exactly what the end user wanted. And sometimes when you're in a construction project, what design team members and what contractors deem as what's needed for handover isn't what the end user needs. So the benefit of being on the client side is that you put in place what you want, and then we make sure that you get what you want. When we're on the contractor side, we're driven by the requirements from the construction team and not the end user, and that's sometimes where our hands can be tied in some of these developments.
Thanks, Mark. And I think to wrap up, back over to you, Cam.
Yeah, so hopefully we've found the session so far useful, at the very minimum in understanding what common challenges we're coming across with housing associations, managing their information. So why DFM as a solution for housing associations? Well, DFM as a business, we've been established for over 20 years now, focused on understanding our clients' requirements and ensuring completing and compliant building information during the building life cycle on one single source platform. We're the #1 provider for clients and contractors within Ireland. We've helped manage the process of receiving documentations from contractors during the build phase to ensure accurate data at PC, along with our teams being in a position to provide quality assurance of the information received to mitigate risk of any incorrect information being handed over when it comes to PC. With the existing buildings, we've also helped just provide clients with a clear understanding of any gaps that there currently are in terms of their information management for the building and ensure continuous compliance across their portfolios. We have a number of clients such as Google, who see DFM as the cornerstone of their building information, along with the LDA, whose live buildings are currently managed through the DFM team, which should give reassurance we're best placed to understand what your building information needs are. And I think at the very minimum, at least provide suitable advice to your teams to understand how you continue to manage your building information.
Thanks, Cam. So we have one final poll to wrap up, and then we can take questions if any of you have them. And that poll is, pretty simple answer to this. It's, will you be looking to evaluate your building information processes in the near future? Yes, no, or I don't know. So if you can cast your votes now, that would be great. And just looking at the responses, 80% of you are saying probably yes, in the near future you will be looking at your building information process. And I think looking at kind of the demands of the government with housing targets, the requirements that are needed, the complexity that those requirements put on not only yourselves but your data, and how that is managed, probably means that having a better process in the future is going to help kind of operationally how you work with that data. So I think this is a time, probably a good time, to start thinking about some of these things, and how you manage that process, especially when, as we said, we're hearing it everywhere that everyone has this fragmented data. I don't think anyone's probably got the complete answer to it yet. So we are open for questions now. So if anybody has any, please, put them into the chat or the question section at the bottom of the screen and we can take them. Yes, we can send the slides through, that's no problem. So afterwards we'll share them with you for everyone that's attended today. I do have actually a question that has come in. Can you tell us more about DFM's experience, specifically with approved housing bodies? Mark, maybe you can take that one. I know we've got it today, but maybe a bit more detail.
Yeah, sure. So what we've done, and it probably ties in with the process we've developed over the last 18 to 24 months with the LDA and the framework with them. What we have done is we've very much changed the requirements to focus back more on residential. So we've worked with the LDA on this stage. I think it's around 20 projects over the last 18 months. Some of those would have been in with approved housing bodies also. So I think we have handed over projects to TUA, Clwyd, Oakley. I think at this stage we've nearly handed projects over to everyone. So what we're trying to do is get that level, which I think we got to a very good level with the LDA of the requirements for so many units and managing so much information. But it's to look with each individual company what they want specifically, to tailor that to suit their exact requirements, because everyone will have slightly different requirements, and what we do is make sure then we can tie in with them, and that one, the information is there, but also how they want to link out to other systems like their CAFM systems, to be able to give URL links and information out, so they have one kind of system that they can link between one and the other. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, that's great, Mark. We do have another question that's come in actually. For the naming of files, is it down to the developer to name them in line with your criteria, or do you rename files as they come in?
We would rename. So again, depending on the contract that we would have, but our standard process is that every document that comes in gets opened, gets reviewed, gets the metadata checked and updated. That would be what we would do on all of our projects. Yeah.
Great. And maybe one for you, Cam. How does, maybe you could delve a bit deeper. I know you touched on this. How does DFM's approach differ to using a standard document storage system like a SharePoint? I know that a number of companies have SharePoint integrated into their overall operations and organizations. So it's probably it feels like an easy solution to use sometimes, doesn't it? So, but I think there is a difference in how they work.
Yeah, no, exactly that. So I know I referenced earlier to do with Google moving across their information from G Drive over to DFM Live. The main reason for this is the searchability of that information. So what you typically get using SharePoint is just a data dump. So it doesn't necessarily solve the issue for the facilities management team finding that information when they most need it. With DFM, we've got search functions where we can specifically find that information, along with naming conventions, so all that information is findable. And as Mark showed on the demo as well, we've even got QR codes that can obviously be placed out to make sure that those teams have that information at hand. Say that there is an issue with the heating, for example, or anything to do with the maintenance of the building, we have that information straight away.
And I think just on that as well, Marie, to back that point up, is a lot of our competitors are software solutions. They don't have the service, so it's fine having someone dump, as Cam said, the information, which we see a lot, into SharePoint. But if you don't have that information as our information manager or coordinator collating that information, that's where the biggest problem is.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say with most conversations that we have with contractors, they would make us aware that they're using a system like Procore, for example, to capture all their data. And the assumption is that this information is good enough to just hand over to the client. But we know firsthand that in practice, they're not going to be able to find the information. Likely there's going to be missing gaps in that information that's handed across. So we're trying to push, obviously, the DFM system onto the contractors. They understand that this is actually important for the client, not just for themselves.
Great. Thank you both. We do have another question, and We have had buildings with paper-based records going back years. Firstly, can you handle that? And how long does it typically take to migrate existing building data? That's probably one for you, Mark, is it?
Yeah, well, I was waiting to see if Cam wanted to take that one now, but that's fine. Yes, we can. So we have, and that's where the background with some of our biggest clients, the Reeds, likes of Henderson Park and Hibernia Reed, that started off where we digitized 10, 15 years ago mountains of paper folders into an online platform, then continued on with that. So yes, we do it depending on how many folders. Generally, if we take our last project, I think was 70 folders. So that took around, to break the documents out to the level we want, took around 3 weeks to scan, and then another probably 2 or 3 weeks to add into the system and put all the metadata into it. So like 70 folders, that would be quite a big project. Generally, some of the projects we see, older projects, maybe have 10 folders. So that would probably take 2-3 weeks probably to do.
But I guess 6 weeks is probably nothing really if you've got all your information digitized and you can use it, search it, and actually find it easily. I think that's the key here, isn't it? It's accessible.
It is, yeah. It is, and it's what we try and do is break that information out as much as possible. So in one folder, for example, you may have a mechanical O&M. It could be 500 pages. Scanning that as one PDF and putting it in doesn't solve the solution. So we pull the system descriptions out, schedules, data sheets, O&Ms into individual records. So finding that information is easier.
Great, thank you, Mark. And do you have a typical time saving, having worked with numerous companies doing this now, from moving from a fragmented to a more centralized process and system? I don't know, Cam or Mark, who wants to take that? Go on, Mark.
Time save. Well, I know for example, on handover of projects, we had it in the past where people moving from paper-based or SharePoint at the end of projects have saved 4 to 6 weeks of work on trying to hand projects over, just down to having it ready and structured on time.
Yeah.
And that's why, like when we're talking with the likes of Google or Meta, who have more systems and people, you can throw out. It's down to just having the right framework, the right people, the right system there to be able to use. Otherwise, if it was easy, they'd do it themselves.
Yeah. And I guess from a new project perspective as well, with the contractor, us obviously reviewing the information, making sure that that's correct prior to handing over to the client, we're giving time back to the actual contractor and trades, so they can focus on closing out the project and just making sure that there's less chance of delays to PC.
Yeah.
Great, thank you both. That looks like that's kind of the final questions for today. Feel free, anyone that's joined today, if you do have questions after the call, to reach out to one of the team. We'll send over details post the call with the slides so that you can reach back out if you do have further questions or you want to speak further about any of this. I want to thank Mark and Cam for taking us through this today. Really clear explanation. It's good to see how this can all come together and kind of overcome that fragmented data situation and challenges that we're experiencing. So thank you both. And I'd like to thank you all that joined today and listening. And I'd like to now close the call. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
That's great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.